In this connection, we thought that we will call some eminent people wherein they can enlighten our particular community what best precautions can be taken to see that our children are safe. The most important aspect is, with this connection, we have conducted today's meeting. Before handing over to the speakers, I want to give a small introduction of both. We had a great honor of Dr. Raghunath CN. He is the head of the pediatric department of PICU, Pediatric Intensive Care Unit, Sagar Hospital, and executive board member college of PICC, and vice president IAPBPS, Indian Academy of Pediatrics, and executive board member of IID, and so on and so forth. I welcome and very happy to have this eminent personality for today's discussion. He is going to enlighten us about our participants, create awareness, and face this COVID situation and come out safely about this problem. The next personality we have got is our moderator, great Dr. Prashant Reddy. Majority of CTF people knows him. He is one of the most active doctor, in our team, that he has taken lot of initiation and interest and organizing and creating a lot of webinars like this. Really, we are lucky. Really, HSR people are very lucky to have this particular doctor with us. He has done his MBBS and MS from Bangalore Medical College, and he specializes in endoscopic sinus and skull-based surgery. And apart from this, as a doctor, he has done his MBA from Indian Institute of Management. This is a specialty of our Dr. Prashant Reddy, and he's a consultant BGSS Hospital, Sagar Hospital, cluster in charge of Bangalore, INO Center, and in charge of NSIR cell, IMME. And apart from this, a multilinguistic man, a very calm and cool going. He answers so coolly, so nicely, and everybody. I welcome you all. We will take good advices from this particular segment of doctors. I am confident that each one of you will be very happy to ask the questions. Also, we'll have a separate session and we'll go ahead with this. Thank you so much, Prashant sir. I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. So, Dr. Raghunath, maybe you can give an overall aspect of what is happening with the pediatric age group and what is the difference between the first wave and the second wave, and what do you feel are the most panicking situation for the parents? Because I think I'm 100% sure every day you will be getting a lot of patients who are panicking and coming to you in regards to their kids. So maybe if you can give an overall perspective of how COVID is, then we can take it forward accordingly. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Prashant and Ramanath sir. Thanks for this opportunity to share what little I know to the community, so that if it is going to help them, I would be very, very, very grateful to all your efforts. And thank you very much, Dr. Prashant. Prashant and myself work in the same hospital, and he is a very good consultant. And thank you, Prashant. And so, as you have already told, there is a COVID. It is a pandemic. This pandemic started sometime in January of the last year, where WHO declared it as a health emergency. And on March 31st, it was concluded as a pandemic. And then we know so on and so forth. There were many lockdowns, and we are in the second round of lockdown. So what has happened during this stage? So if you look back, see, we had a pandemic in 1908, which lasted for a couple of years, and it was called a Spanish flu, which is the regular flu what we used to get. So even this flu virus had three waves. That was the first wave, and the second wave was the most critical one, and the third wave died off without much of problems. So if we look at the COVID, we hope and pray to God that and the third wave would be milder. Because we look at the experience, we look at the scientific background, and we say this. But the government of India's scientific advisor has been telling that the third wave of COVID is going to be more severe, and it's going to affect more number of children. So with this prospect, we'll start. Now this COVID virus started from some Wuhan market, and it spread to only Wuhan, then to the whole of the world. So this is what everybody of us know. And when we had this first wave, then we all were worried, oh, okay, that it's going to affect everybody was the thing. And then many countries which were affected, then they told us, no, the incidence in our country is only 1% of all the patients of COVID. And this was our experience. So if you take the last wave of COVID, in our country also, we had very few admissions, very few admissions, and very few admissions to the ICU as such. And most of the ICU admissions to the hospital were because the whole family was affected with COVID, and we couldn't put the patient baby somewhere else. So this was the reason many a times the babies got admitted last year. Of course, we had in between in August to November, there was something new thing added to this COVID called as MIS. This was first reported in England. It is called as multi-organ inflammatory syndrome, and we also saw a few of them in December, January of the last year. December of the last year. So these are the multi things which we have come across in the COVID. Now, uh, why we have to be scared about COVID? So see, all who gets COVID is not going to die. One thing we have to remember. So who are the people who are going to be affected more? The patients who have comorbidities. What are the comorbidities we know? One is for adults, it is hypertension, diabetes, chemotherapy medication, transplant. Then you have people on dialysis. All these people are more prone for COVID, was what was discussed earlier. Now, when we come to children, same way, there are some comorbidities for children also. And those comorbidities are like a child who's undergone cardiac surgery, or who has congenital heart disease and was pending for surgery or waiting for surgery later on, or who is obese, who had asthma. And children with obesity are more prone for COVID. This is what we have seen in this way. Most of the adolescents who were weighing very heavy were the people who came into my ICU. Of course, we were lucky enough that we didn't have any mortality in our hospital, but I don't know about the other places though. But these are the people who are more affected. And then we have the children who are on chemotherapy. These are the set of people who are supposed to have a severe disease. And probably when you think that the COVID is positive for these children, probably better to be under the monitoring of the doctors. So when do we suspect COVID? Well, if you have a person in the family who's been diagnosed to have COVID, yes, then you have to suspect it. And during the pandemic, whatever the manifestation of disease comes, the first thought will be about COVID. So please don't get upset when your doctor says we have to check COVID. Because most of the time when the first wave, when we suggested people to get COVID, they left with a little upset with us, thinking that this guy is trying to make something out of us. Let me tell you, there is a black sheep in all the professions. It is not just the doctors. And unfortunately, the media highlights us very badly, though we are the ones who are standing here to support the community. I feel really sad, and well, that is a different story. We'll
That's a
leave
different talk.
it.
Yes, definitely, sir.
Yes. So now, so please understand that when you are going to get admitted for a procedure or something else, we have to make sure the other patients are also safe along with you being safe. So what the usual thing is, whenever somebody is getting admitted to the hospital, we do a RT-PCR, make sure that the child is negative or the person is negative, so that we have a different places for admission. If you are COVID, we have a different place to admit. If you are non-COVID, you have a different. This is the reason why when you go to the hospital, they do a COVID test for you. Second thing is, when you have the common manifestation for COVID is when you suspect is fever, headache, body pains, tiredness, and running nose, cough, sore throat. These are the few milder forms, and there may be rapid breathing. And if you look at them, they'll be breathing very fast. Usually, breathing is a very smooth process. You will not be knowing how just a person is breathing. If you notice a child or a person breathing fast, that means that he may have pneumonia. That could be COVID pneumonia or some other pneumonia, or he may be having asthma. These are the things which come to you. That is breathlessness. Then the other set of the symptoms what COVID presents is, one is like diarrhea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. This is a common manifestation in children. This year, we had, before the surge of this wave, there was a huge amount of children who came with diarrhea, abdominal pain, and vomiting. So this was I mean, probably an alarming symptom if you look back at it. And many of our pediatrician colleagues became positive during this process. The positivity was related to also the vaccine. Doctors who had taken one dose and had missed the second dose for various reasons had got the symptoms. So people who are immunized with vaccine had a less chance of reinfection. So what I want to bring up here is who are vaccinated are pretty safe when compared to people who are not vaccinated. So that is about it. Then we have the infants. It's difficult to understand them. So any child who's got a poor feeding or who has got some children may complain. Children above 8 years may complain about loss of taste or loss of odor. These are the children who are who are much what do you say much
At risk.
they are the ones who are more intelligent and who can understand, and they are the ones who are going to complain about loss of taste and loss of this thing. So other thing what I was talking about MISC is when you have rash, eyeballs turning red, that is conjunctivitis, or congestion in the throat, some ulcers in the mouth. These are the things we are presenting and suddenly becoming lethargic, peripheries becoming cold. These are features of MISC. So there can be children who are asymptomatic at home, and there may be close contact with other COVID patients. So all asymptomatic patients may not require checking for COVID. Now, whom to test? So I told you that whoever is getting admitted to the hospital for admission, they are the ones, and the children who are suspected to have COVID, who have the following symptomatology, can be addressed to this test. So do you think all these tests are 100% sensitivity? No, the RT-PCR is only about 60 to 70% sensitivity. What I mean to say, if you check 100 patients with COVID-19, 60 to 65% of them can become positive. The rest, 30 to 35%, can be still negative. So there was a little problem because of this during this wave. So that is why I'm addressing this. Then there is one more test we call as rapid antigen test, which is done, and it is very highly not very less sensitive, less accurate, and it is about 35 to 40%. And if one of the tests is positive, then it is considered as COVID positive. So now with this background, we can tell who is a mild case, moderate case, and who is a severe patient, who requires home isolation, who doesn't require home isolation, are the things which we need to address now. So any child who has got any viral infection, like most of the COVID resembles the other viral infections. Like during your younger age, you would have gone through having running nose, cough, cold. These are the common features of any viral infection, and these is going to be there for COVID also. So any child who's got a mild fever, cough, cold, and he's playing around, there's no problem, he's not tired, his saturations are fine, these are considered as mild case. So the children who are mild can be taken care at home. Only thing about the mild cases, they have to be isolated from the grandparents. These are the children who are going to spread. They are going to stick to the parents or the grandparents. So ideally speaking, parents are better than grandparents because their immunity level would be better. But if the grandparents are, I mean, this is a difficult situation to answer whom to isolate the patient with, and it is mostly of the convenience of the parents to with whom they can be isolated. So these are children who have to be isolated. If there are 4, 5 children in the community and one of the child is sick, please don't allow other 3 children to play with this child. If your child is sick, please don't allow them to go around with the older people at home. Okay, these are few things which I would like to tell you with the mild cases. So how do we treat the mild cases? It is only symptomatic treatment. That is, we give paracetamol if they have fever. If they have cold cough, we give cold cough medicine and hydrate them well. That is, make them drink a lot of water. If they have loose motion gastroenteritis, then give them ORS and hydrate them very well. These are the things how we treat a mild case. If the mild case has got some comorbidities like asthma, congenital heart disease, nephrotic syndrome, and things like that who are immunosuppressed, then what we need to do is see whether they are easily accessible to the hospital or they stay far away. If they are easily for people from HSR layout, you don't have to worry. You can stay at home. But if you see any distress, if the child is breathing fast or if his child is becoming lethargic or sleepy, not responding, not playful like before, then it is time for you to go and meet the pediatrician at your hospital. So this is for the mild case. If it is what do you call as moderate case? Moderate case is one of the children who saturation is less than 94%, who's breathing fast and who's tired or who's not able to feed well and who appears dehydrated. These are the children who require admission to the COVID care center or the hospital. So what happens when they get admitted to the hospital? The whole family gets panicked. The whole family follows to the hospital. Now we have a COVID hospital where you are all going there. So along with the baby, all of you are going to be more exposed to the COVID patients who are there. So what ideally is supposed to do is either the parents go to the COVID care center and admit, and most of the time the child doesn't stay without anybody. So it has to stay with somebody who is very close, and usually the mother stays with the child. So the mother is always at the risk of having COVID. So what we do is we take a consent from the mother telling that you are staying there, but in case something goes wrong, you're not going to uh, sue the hospital or sue anybody. So because this is an ethical issue here, because the child is not going to stay alone in the ward. So you have to keep somebody. So this is what we do. And we request the parents to stay, the single parent who is going to stay, and nobody is going to take turns in staying in the hospital, because the other people are again going to be
They're at risk.
exposed to the COVID, because this child is going to be in the COVID ward, and there is only COVID patients in this place where we are going to admit this child. So this is some of the things which I keep on telling my patients, but unfortunately I see next day Mausi is there, and next to that day grandfather felt very upset, so he's come and sat there. Now
That's the Indian psychology and the Indian emotions which get entangled with this. So that is definitely there. So if I may sum up the whole thing for the parents, so mild cases are kids who have, or we have to take it for granted that it is a COVID case, if at all there's a COVID positive case in one household, especially in the second wave. And kids are considered to be a mild case if they're still running around and they are fine. They are not running a very high fever, and their breathing is fine. The moment they need to come and consult a pediatrician or get admitted is when the patient gets lethargic, or if the patient is kind of tired and his or her, the kid's breathing rate is extremely high. So that's when we need to take consensus, if I may sum up in that format. So coming forward, many people are asking, what about the vaccination for the kids? When do we get it? When is it advisable, especially for COVID? And also, what about the vaccination of regular universal vaccination? Do we need to hold it back or do we need to give it? That's another major question which many parents will be asking. Maybe you can throw a little bit light on that aspect.
Surely, Prashant. Thanks for summing up. And one more thing I would like to bring up here is with a CT scan of
Yes,
the chest, which may not be definitely needed for all
very
patients
true.
with COVID positive. So, and there are number of drugs which have been used in adults, which may not be required for pediatric patients. One, paracetamol. Two, hydration. These are the two medicines which are required for children.
Yes,
No need of flapivervel or HCQ or any other medication. So please restrain from using all these medications for children. For adults, they may have little vomiting or gastritis, but for children, it can have
very, very
severe,
serious.
serious reaction.
That's the
So
WhatsApp university at play, unfortunately.
yes, sir. What happens is most of the parents get panicked. They look at the WhatsApp University and they start treating their children. Of course, we know that you are very worried, but that is the reason we are here today to tell you not to do all these tests. We do these tests when the child is sick. We don't do blood tests regularly for any of these children. We do blood tests only for children with MISC. We do CT scan when the child is breathing very fast and to know how much of the lungs is involved. We don't use remdesivir unnecessarily for any of these children. So because this is my experience in the ICU, what I have come across. You don't have to do anything much for this children. So that is
Very
one
true.
thing which I wanted to highlight. So what happens is often because of the parental pressure, we are the treating doctor also gets pressurized. Something goes wrong, why to worry about? They are willing, we'll do it, but it is not really
Not
required at
required.
all.
That's
So
what has
even
been come out like recently, yesterday's paper or today's paper that's come out. Like 90% of people who got the fake remdesivir got cured. That
yes,
I think that just sums up about what is remdesivir. And also talking about treatment, a lot of people are very anxious about getting plasma and giving it to the kids. What's your take on that?
sir, definitely plasma causes more harm than helping the children. That too, plasma is given in a stage where the person is not improving, his lungs are bad. So plasma itself can make lung more worse. It is called as TRALI, that is transverse transfusion induced lung injury. So do you want to put your kin into more problems? Of course, there are anecdotal cases here and there told that plasma therapy is improved, but unfortunately, one of my own friend who's a doctor who was on the ventilator was given plasma and he was had to be rushed here and he really took 20 days to recover. And the the pulmonologist and the treating team said that it was probably related to plasma. So please be cautious. Don't force your doctors, don't arm twist your doctors to do things which are not really required for. So main stay of treatment, there is dexamethasone, which is a steroid. We usually use this. That is used in more severe patients, not even in the moderate. Moderate also is usually they get better. But in case we are suspecting that they can worsen, we start steroids. So this is what is the role of many medications which are there in the parent's head. Now coming to the vaccination, what we have seen is there are multiple vaccines, Moderna, then we have Covishield, then Covaxin, then we have Sputnik, then we have Johnson and Johnson. Only Johnson and Johnson was tested in children. So the other Covishield was tried from 16 years onwards. So when you talk about pediatrics, you have to remember the age group is between 0 to 19 years. Anybody less than 19 years fall into pediatric age group. So since it is being tested between 16 to 16 plus years. The government has suggested 18 plus to be on the safer side so that there is no problem with the vaccination. So basically, why it is not done? Because the research is going on. They may come up with new vaccine later on, and then we can use those vaccines once we have the research paper in hand. So already Covishield and Covaxin have started their trials, and we have to wait for them to come with a positive reply. So this is about the vaccination. I request anybody who is above 18 to register themselves at the earliest and get the Covaxin or Covishield. Please don't worry about what brand you are giving. Ultimately, none of them is superior or none of them is inferior. Indian vaccine is also as good as the foreign ones. So please don't fall prey for some foreign stuff. Please be an Indian national and take our Indian vaccine. These are very, very efficient. The reason because I am telling you this is because I have taken Covishield. My parents have taken Covishield. The whole hospital where we are working are taken Covishield. And all of us are fine. And none of us
Very
have
true.
been infected. So one or two anecdotal cases, patients have or doctors have fallen sick, but they have not fallen sick to the extent what other patients are following. So please do take the vaccine, which is the most important thing. So if you get a chance to get vaccinated, please go and take the vaccine. And people who are positive and who was admitted in the hospital, wait for 6 weeks and go talk to your doctor and get the vaccine done. Because sometimes the antibody levels may be high and the vaccine may not be efficacious sometimes, but that will be left to the treating physician to decide what he wants to do. Generally, after 6 weeks, you can take the vaccine. So this is what is about the COVID vaccination of the patients. So more the number you are vaccinated, we can remove the mask easily, and we can have our regular day-to-day meetings and other things instead of this virtual background. So all of us need to get vaccinated, and the government has taken utmost care to get all of us vaccines. They have increased the vaccine production. They have stopped giving vaccines to other countries. So they're doing a good possible job.
Very good, sir. So there are a few questions being asked, like, immediately after COVID, if there is any infection, or is there any kind of role in as the kids getting vaccinated during this pandemic? Is it yes, or is it a no, or is it a maybe?
The regular immunization, that is universal immunization program for the children who are born during the COVID times, need to take their vaccine on time. COVID is only a part of pandemic. It may finish off by 2020 to 2022. Now, if you don't take these vaccines, your child can be crippled, disabled, very badly injured. So I would suggest vaccine preventable diseases are the core thing, and it has to be given. Now, there may be a question like mother was pregnant and she was COVID positive and delivered a child. Should we lactate? Should we give the breastfeeds or not? This is one question which is commonly asked. Please go ahead. Mother should wash her hands, wear a mask. If the child is COVID positive, nothing to be done, straight away feed. Nothing will happen to the baby. In fact, it is good because the mother will be secreting antibodies in the milk. So this is going to prevent the child to have serious infection. So if the mother is positive and if the baby is born and he is COVID positive, please have a close look at the baby for 6 weeks, because sometimes there is something called as multi-inflammatory MISC, which can happen at around 5 to 6 weeks. So this has to be cautiously watched in these parents. However, the children who were born in Sagar, we have all advised them and sent them, and we do see them at 6 weeks for the vaccine. So definitely we are going to look at them once again. So lactating mothers, please don't take vaccine. The WHO does not prescribe vaccination for lactating mother. In case you are going to stop feeding, yes, go ahead and take the vaccine. The reason, there are multiple debates about it, and I don't want to confuse you. we will go with the WHO, what is been advised by us. So please do take vaccine, whatever gets into your hand. So don't wait for Covaxin. Many of the doctors who suffered were waiting for Covaxin, ultimately took Covishield. One dose prevented them from serious infections. So please do take the 2 doses of vaccine. 2 doses are required to boost your immune system. Not 1 dose is not sufficient. So the dose, the duration between the 2 vaccines should be around 4 to 6 weeks. That is what is the present recommendation. However, we all took it in 4 weeks duration. So we didn't have any research papers at that point of time. So that is why we have taken it. Now, what is that we could address? The next question, somebody was asking about plasma therapy in children. Usually we don't do plasma therapy in children. These are usually last ditch effort for the adult patients what is tried, because somebody would read from the WhatsApp University, force the doctor to give. So anyway, we know he's going and we try whatever is possible if it turns the situation around. So this is why we most of the time it may cause harm than good.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for all this information. I'll open up the mic for everyone. So whoever has a question can raise a hand and I'll unmute them and then we can take it forward.
Pramodar.
Yeah.
Hello, doctors. Thank you very much, first of all, for all the information. I put my question in chat as well. So just wondering, I wanted to get your opinions on how is the pediatric infrastructure? We've been hearing so much news about, no beds, no oxygens and all that for adults. I would assume pediatrics is weaker, but I'm obviously not equipped to answer. I want to get your thoughts on how is the pediatric infrastructure in, say, city like Bangalore?
Pramod, it's a very good question. I've been in the, yesterday I got a call from the health minister asking him to join the task force to help to, get prepared for the next wave. So we, as in at the government level, they're already gearing up their resources and they're making sure that enough oxygen is there available and enough medications are going to be available. In a city like Bangalore, see, we may not be having so many beds as adult beds of ICU beds. What I mean to say is, we may not have so many adult beds as compared to pediatric beds. See, if you have 20 beds of adults, we have around 5 to 6 beds of PICU, so pediatric ICU. So that is what we are looking at, and about 500 to 600 beds are available in Bangalore, PICU beds, and we can scale it up. Whereas in the country, in the places in like Mysore and there may be around 200 to 300 beds. Most of the districts have their own medical colleges, which can be scaled up. And that is what we are looking at this point of time. So Pramod, the government is really keen about it and they're already working on it. They're looking into transport, they're looking into oxygen, they're looking at the medication, they're looking at how to get the manpower. They have a lot of things in place already. I mean, in place in the sense on the papers we have been discussing and it is going to happen. I don't think we have to panic much. This is what at this point of time, because it's still in a very fluid state to tell you how prepared we are.
Sure. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kamlesh, you can ask next.
Yeah, Doctor, good evening. Thanks for the information. Actually, I have 2 questions. The first question is, as we know, the second wave, it is more sort of hitting to lungs, actually. So I'm trying to compare and I want to know that generally for the kids, lungs would be much better than the adults, right? So do you think that will it be the same kind of impact if it happens for the kid? That's the question number 1. Okay, you can go ahead and answer for that, Doctor.
No, finish.
Yeah, and second question is sort of more on the procedural part. So as you discuss about the plasma therapy, and we have been seeing all those in WhatsApp University and all those things, as you rightly mentioned, but we also know that it is still in the document or in the guidelines by ICMR that in mild cases, it has seen some improvement when you do this within 4 to 5 days or 5 to 7 days of the patient. So my question is that if, as we have heard from you or many other eminent experts, what is the reason that ICMR is not revising the guidelines? Or because this is where I know you would have a more answer than this. As a common person, I'm just asking, it is creating more confusion, doctor. Okay. And thank you so much.
So coming to the lungs, it is not the parenchymal involvement of the lung which is causing the problem.
Mm.
It is two ways it happens. One is completely involving the parenchyma. Another set is that you have a happy hypoxia where the vessels are not, clogged with the thrombus, where the oxygenation takes place, but the oxygen is not carried out. These are the two varieties. So usually with the children who had the patients who had parenchymal involvement have recovered and they've done well. These are also recovering, but it takes a while. So there is no difference in the lung as such between the adult and the pediatric. That is what I can tell you. The involvement can be the same. And coming to plasma therapy, this is a government and it is difficult for a person who's practicing in a corporate hospital to comment about it. But of course, there are a lot of papers and all the papers say that this plasma therapy is not good. And as you said, sir, it was not good to use in the milder distinct diseases. You said in first 5 to 6 days in mild cases, even if you don't give anything, they will get better and go home. So we don't have to worry about it. Only we were talking about plasma therapy in the this thing. Severe who are not recovering and who are problematic. So this is what was the discussion about. So we don't use plasma therapy for milder cases.
Thank you, doctor.
We don't use any medicines for milder cases. Usually they settle down by themselves.
Jeevan, you can ask a question next.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Raghunath for explaining so many things. Especially every parent is worried about the kids. That is the parent psychology. So thanks for that. My first question is, suppose somebody has taken Covishield dose, right? So in the second dose, based on the ability, can he go for Covaxin or Covishield? Does it matter?
Sir, it is clearly told by the government of India that whatever first vaccine you have taken, same vaccine has to be taken in the second dose. Okay. So you cannot change from Covishield to Covaxin.
Okay. So suppose, like for example, right now the availability is also less, right? So
yes,
people are waiting for that. So suppose 1 month back somebody has taken, right? So he is supposed to take the vaccine, let's say by 4 to 6 weeks of duration. And at that point of time, suppose the vaccine is not available, and he's taking after, let's say it is available after, let's say, instead of 4 to 6 weeks, take availability after, let's say, 8 weeks or so. So how it is going to impact?
That's a good question, sir. It has to be addressed to an expert scientific committee to find out. But definitely, when we give 2 boosters, the minimal period is what we look at. It is not the maximum period we look at when we give the booster shot. So initially, the minimum period for taking that was 4 weeks. And then it has been extended to 4 to 8 weeks. So up to 8 weeks, there is no problem. And if you look at it, the government, wherever you are going for the vaccine, if it is the second dose, they are prioritized when compared to the first dose. You get around priority. So these are things which are being done by the government.
Okay, one last question. What do you suggest? Like, for example, we understand vaccination is one answer.
So whatever you have taken in the previous vaccine, if you have taken Covishield, please take Covishield after that.
Okay. And I'm talking about a different question related to kids. What are the preventive things we can do for kids? Let's say, for example, we can suggest, suppose vaccination is one answer, but that also we have to wait for the kids for that vaccine to come, right? So in the meantime, what we, let's say you can advise, what, as a parent, what we should do for the kids so that it could be called as a preventive measures. Let's say some exercises, some breathing exercise, some this and that. Can you suggest on that what we can do in absence of vaccine till it comes?
Sure, sir. Sir, first and foremost thing is don't take your child outside unnecessarily Don't take them for a walk. Don't take them outside the house. Second thing is don't allow strangers or unwanted guests and relatives into your house. Third thing is when your domestic help comes into the house, please wear a mask. Ask her also to wear a mask because these are people who keep going from one house to another house. So you don't know what is the thing. This is the right time to educate your children about hygiene and put them, make sure that you teach them the right way and method of washing the hands and not to touch the eyes and nose, to wear a mask if the child is above 2 years. If the child is above 2 years, it has to wear a mask with the under the supervision of the parents. The child without supervision cannot wear mask. He should be at least 8 to 10 years to wear a mask without any supervision. Why is this? Because it can cause sometimes a difficulty to breathe, and the child's airway and the respiratory system is small to accommodate. Then coming to your house, if you are these are the like doorknobs, handles are the commonly used things. At least it should be cleaned once in a day so that you don't get all these things. And most of the time, it is droplet or infection. So please make sure that you wear a mask and don't allow your child to go near patients who are COVID positive. These are the few things which can definitely be done. And most of the things, if you are planning to send to school and other things, it is very difficult at this point of time, and which may not be feasible at all till we get the vaccine.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Navneet, you can ask a question next.
Hi, doctors. My name is Navni. Just wanted to ask, how easy is it for a pediatrician or a doctor to identify these sort of complications like MISC, etc., that are possibly new and undiagnosed, and what are the things that we can do at home to highlight that okay, this might be such a case and I need to call my doctor.
So the important thing about MISC is it is a severe form of COVID. That is what I can tell you. So you can suspect, you will go to a doctor because will be a very high grade fever, 101, 102, going on for 2-3 days, not touching the baseline. You have a light congestion of your eyes, congested throat, and the child may be lethargic, so which will force you to go to the hospital. Child may develop rash. These are, and child may start refusing the feed and becomes tired very fast. These are things which will force you to see a doctor immediately. So these are the symptoms also, and this will also force the parents to see the doctor. Most of the doctors are well educated regarding MISC. Most pediatrician knows about it. I don't think there is any pediatrician at least in India, because it will be a overstatement. Most of the pediatricians know about it because we have lots of webinars conducted every day, and Indian Academy of Pediatrics, we do conduct from Bangalore branch, we conduct 2 days in a week, and in the Karnataka state branch where does 2 days, the central IEP has 2 days. So almost every day there is bombardment of knowledge to the pediatricians. So hopefully at least they would have heard 1 or 2 of the lectures and they would.
Okay. Thank you, doctor. That's good to hear.
Thanks.
So you'll have limited lesson time.